Welcome to The Family Business, a podcast about football and life from the perspective of a coach and his daughter. I'm Stephanie Turner, and I'm here with my dad, Norv Turner. And to recap this NFL season, today we have a repeat guest. Our friend, NFL senior writer for The Athletic, Mike Sando, joins us. Mike, welcome back to the podcast.
It's great to be here. It's great to be home. I had a great week in San Francisco, but with the season over, we could come back and it's like, I think my wife and I are going to go to a farmer's market on this Saturday. All that stuff in season, you forget about it.
Yeah.
But I love each season. Now we go on to the next one. We'll get into free agency and all of that. But it was really a fun season, unexpected season. I wouldn't have predicted a lot of these things.
Yeah. I mean, let's just say, like, what did we think about the Super Bowl? I mean, I think all around we could say everyone agrees it was a bit of a boring game, but exciting for Seahawks fans.
So I think this is where Coach and I are going to agree because the goal of these games is to win the game. And I think the exciting part could have been if Seattle had some of these offensive coaches want to win the game on offense. But Mike McDonald knows he just needs to win the game. Yeah. And he's going to win the game. He's got the better team. The only way he loses the game is if they do stupid stuff.
Right.
Try to win. Let's just say Clint Kubiak, their coordinator, would never do this. But if he didn't have the Raider job lined up or something, sometimes you'll see a coordinator just, let's go. I'm show off in this game.
Right.
They didn't do that. They everything was geared to win the game. It was a slow choke out game where Seattle, the head coach, to me, had everything exactly the way he wanted it. They never screwed it up. And yeah, it was boring, but he's got that ring on his finger and they'll come, it was really sound to me.
But do you think that's easy to say from that perspective? Because that could have been the intention going into it, but obviously New England had their intention too. And so did they lose the game?
I think they knew who they were playing.
I
mean? Yeah, they knew who they were playing. They were playing not Mahomes. They knew exactly what they were playing, and Drake Maye promising, but there's a reason those guys weren't predicted to be. They were 80-1 to win the Super Bowl before the year.
Yeah.
So they would pivot if they had to. And if you look in the NFC Championship game, when they were on their heels, their defense was getting really, Matt Stafford was really taking it to them. Well, now you've got Darnold hanging in the pocket, making throws off his back feet to the end zone, riskier plays, but they had to do it to win the game. So it's all unique to that game. They weren't playing Stafford, and they knew that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the game was geared in because both teams, the dominant side of their team was the defensive side. Obviously, New England's defense carried them throughout the year, and they did a great job offensively with the running game and with a second-year quarterback. But obviously, Seattle's defense was dominant. They got great play from Sam Darnold in the playoffs, but not necessarily in the Super Bowl. They did what they had to do in that game, as you said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, even if they're favored to win, right? And people going into it, you think, oh, Seattle's definitely going to win. I mean, if you're the Patriots going into that game, like, you can't be thinking you're not going to win. No. So, like, what did they do or not do?
I want to ask Coach this because I felt like, and I talked to a lot of coaches before the game too, who played these teams, and they all picked Seattle. They all thought Seattle was better, and they all knew that Vrabel and McDaniels, those guys had to know it too, right? They're not going to say it to their team, but they know. They know where they're at in their team and who they're playing. I was expecting a few more tricks, maybe a go for it. They had a 4th and 1 between the 20s there when the game was not really slipped away yet. What did you think, Coach? Like, from a Vrabel standpoint, I was expecting them to play like the underdog a little more than they did.
Well, I think, unfortunately, their mindset all year has been protect the quarterback. Not so much protect him from getting hit, protect him by the style of play they use, and it's hard to change for a game. I know New England has been awfully good with Josh McDaniel with the trick plays, picking up a touchdown. They ran the flea flicker in the snow in Denver. So I'm sure they had them, and maybe it just didn't come up in the right situation. I was just disappointed in the way New England handled their protection. they got the young tackle out there. He obviously was struggling. You don't know he's going to struggle before the game, but you do need to have a plan if he's having a tough time, and get someone over there to help, get a tight end over there, have the back chip, whatever you can do to help. That would have made it a little bit easier on Maye. Would that have made a big difference? Who knows?
So yeah, I was looking at this. I think they had 56 pass plays in the game. I think they had, an inline tight end on that left side about a dozen times, but he was always releasing. It wasn't in protection. There were maybe a couple times they got the back involved, a chip here or there, but I would love to know, as a Monday morning quarterback, obviously Josh McDaniels has been in hundreds of games, big games.
Mhm.
They've had games where the protection wasn't working. Now they had Dante Scarnecchia a lot of times too, but I don't think you need Dante Scarnecchia to know, hey, this guy keeps getting beat all the time. It's wrecking the game. We need to adjust. How could they not do something different during the game? And you get a half an hour for halftime. I mean,
Mhm.
I can't imagine that there wasn't somebody saying to the head coach or somebody, we got to change our protection.
Yeah, I think everyone has a scheme where you can help that guy when you're struggling, and I would have liked to see him implement a little bit and get in there. They actually, as one-sided as the game felt, they actually got the game to 19-7, and you had little thoughts of New England against Atlanta when it was 28-3. If they get a score there, after it was 19-7, shoot, they're right in it, and they just couldn't get much done.
I think the big difference back then too was you got Brady. I mean, when you're ahead and on Brady and he has to throw the ball, the defensive coordinator is almost a little more nervous now because they know he might get him back into the game. I think Seattle would love to have Drake Maye have to throw to win the game, and they would have won by even more. Now, one thing that's interesting to me, and a coach was texting me during the game, I'd love your take on this, Coach, is remember when they finally did flip the 2 minute at a second, they threw a touchdown. Like, what happens in that situation to make it so that when you go to 2 minute offense, you oftentimes have success, yet you can't do it the whole game?
Well, you can do it. Particularly, you could do it the whole second half. They went into that, and on the touchdown pass, if you remember, if you go back and look at it, 27 is running across the field to get lined up because it was a no-huddle situation. It looked like they were matching up on receivers. So he was late getting lined up, and then as soon as he gets over there, he's not even set. The ball snapped, and they haven't been running a go route, and he just was out of position to make the play. So that's one thing, the pure no-huddle really does for you. It's different than tempo. No-huddle is 2 minute is, get up and snap the ball. Tempo, they're going up, and they've got two plays, and they're trying to decide which one to run, and I think the defense handles that a little better.
Seattle went faster earlier in the game, didn't they? I kept noticing those play clocks were in double digits. Well, it felt like they were moving faster than New England to me.
I think some teams do that, and I always thought that was important. And a lot of it is you get up and call a play. You're not sitting at the line with three options.
Yeah.
We're not deciding are we going to run power right, toss left, or drop back pass. So it helps everyone. It helps the running game. It helps get a tempo going. And no question, they were up speed in their base offense.
But yeah, to your point, Mike, I think that there have been many a game where we've been frustrated, like in the course of my life watching football, where all of a sudden at the end, like the offense is back in it and like making these big plays. And you're like, why weren't you doing this the whole first, the first part of the game? And I don't know, is that sometimes I feel like coordinators are, and it's not like desperation, but it's kind of like, oh, well, we really got to anything goes now to try to win it. And is the argument that like you can't play that aggressively early on because you're trying to maintain the game? Like, what do you think as a play caller?
Well, I just think you go in with a plan, and the one thing about New England, there's different styles that you play, and people say you can't run a two-back offense as much as New England does, but they've done it and won 14 games. So, it's hard to say, well, we're just going to abandon this right now. You struggle a little bit, and then you say, hey, we've got to give ourselves a chance. We got to do some things. Unfortunately, when they did early, try to mix the pass, that left side of the line, they just struggled to protect.
Yeah. I've always felt like, once New England had 78 yards through three quarters. So that's unbelievable. I mean, when that streaker ran across the field, you guys couldn't see it unless you're in the game. The guy jumped out of the stands. He had more yards than the Patriots. I mean, they couldn't get him. They had like one guy jumped out first, like a decoy, and so all the security dove on him. And then I think it had to be his buddy jumped off. These guys probably had a few cold ones all day, and then it goes running around. I thought, man, he outgained.
It makes me happy to know that their streakers still exist. That's an art form that's been going on for decades. That I'm glad to know in the modern times that's still a prank that people pull.
The best one ever was, I think it was a John Daly golf tournament. The best one ever was a guy fully naked running around the golf green, and they're chasing him, and on his lower back where you get the
tattoos,
the tattoo. It said 19th hole with an arrow pointing down. And this guy, golf is a dignified game, and everybody's everybody's going into the country club afterwards, and this guy's running around. It was one of the funniest things. It had to be 20 years ago, and I just thought
that's hilarious.
There was a picture, that ran. It was just classic. But I've always felt like late in these games, New England to me felt like the frog in the pot, and it's warming, and they don't realize. Now they realize, but in general, people don't realize how lost the cause is because the number of possessions remaining in the game is finite, unless you get some amazing punt return or something. By the time you get into the fourth quarter, you're going to get maybe three possessions and then another one that might not be enough to do anything. And so when you're down these scores, your formula in your mind is, okay, not only do we have to stop them from scoring every time, but we have to score in every drive.
Right.
And I felt like the Patriots almost just weren't going to get blown out by worse for some of this, or they just felt like they couldn't do anything because that clock was moving in the third quarter, late in the third quarter, and I felt like they need to get on it.
Yeah,
How
it was like
it
was slow, and then it wasn't all of a sudden. It's that point of the game where there's not much of a difference in the score, and you think, oh, there's still a ton of time left. There's multiple possessions left. They could come back and score, and then all of a sudden there's 5 minutes left, and it's just is too wide of a gap.
People save their timeouts way too long, in my opinion, too. If people really knew what the win percent is when you're down 7 points entering the fourth quarter, it's way more of a lost cause than you think.
Yeah, it is. It's just there's enough of those examples. We've all seen it. You go get a score, you kick off, and someone fumbles the kickoff, the return on the kickoff. Obviously, the reason Seattle was playing is the Rams dropped a punt on the 5-yard line. Something like that can happen, and bang, you're in it. You get a cheap score, you get a short field. And then you're right back in it. But this game allowed for me to get up multiple times and go fill my wine glass because I didn't feel like I was going to miss much in between. I didn't have
big glass, Coach. I mean, how big?
I didn't have too far to go. No, I like to keep it cool, so it's not too big a glass.
The way I always think about it, when I'm watching a game, because I remember a game when I was young, and I think it was when you were at the Redskins, Dad, and we were up by, I think it was against Dallas, maybe. Like we were up by 21 points. Yeah. and it was like the most exciting game. And then the second half, we lost.
Coach remembers every play of this game, by the way. He remembers every play of the game.
Yeah, and so he remembers it. But so this is that cemented in my mind, my theory when I watch games. If they could score 21 points in the first half, we can score 21 points in the second half. And so it's like, I always, if someone gets a big lead and there's time left on the clock, I'm always, the optimistic side of me is always like, look, if they could score that many points in this amount of time, you can turn around and score the same amount or more.
Hard though, because the other team knows when they're ahead, they protect the ball and they milk the clock and they rob your timeout.
It's true, but I'm just saying it's a possibility. I'm not saying it's like likelihood, but it's the optimist in me when I'm rooting for a team and they're behind, and I try to, rally the troops and say, come on, guys, like we're still in this. And obviously that's a bigger lead. But, when you're down by 2 touchdowns or, if it's a 2-3 possession game, then depending on the time, hey, if they could do it, if they could score this many points that quickly, come on, we can do it too. But,
Yeah, we were, I'm going to bring back a good memory since you brought back a memory of being ahead 21-0 and losing. We were playing Tennessee in Tennessee, and they were a very, very fine team, and they had that great defense. And we were down Chargers? 17. Yeah, this was with the Chargers in 2007, and we were down 17-0 and really had not done much and put together a drive and got 17-7, and then somewhere along the way in the fourth quarter, kicked a field goal, and then actually scored on a fade route to Gates with 2 seconds left. Phillip threw a perfect ball from about the 4 or 5 yard line. In between there, we converted a 4th and 15 and put the game in overtime, and then scored first in overtime. LaDainian broke a run about 30 yards for the game-winning touchdown. So, you just keep the faith, and we had some explosive players and a pretty good quarterback, so we were able to overcome that. But it's hard to do.
That's what I was thinking. There wasn't a Gates or a Rivers or a LaDainian in this game for the Patriots, and that's I think the Seahawks knew that. And really, you don't get to pick who you play in these Super Bowls, but that's a huge thing. I mean, Seattle was a good team that maybe would have won the whole thing anyway, but there's a lot of Super Bowl losing teams. How many times do you think the Bills of the 90s wish they played this New England team instead of?
Well, I was thinking about that when we played in the championship game with the Chargers in the 2007 season. We're playing with Phillip hurt and Gates hurt and LT was out, and we're playing the Patriots, who were undefeated at the time. So I looked at that during the playoffs and thought, there's a few teams on here we would have liked to have played, because the AFC, the teams just weren't as strong as the NFC.
I was going to ask because we had a guest, Scott Turner, on a couple weeks ago, and he kind of felt like just overall the NFC teams were stronger this season than the AFC teams. And it just overall play. I don't know. What do you think watching all your analysis?
Well, look at the last 2 Super Bowl winners are the Eagles and the Seahawks, and neither one of them they have good quarterbacks, but they're not Brady or Rivers or those guys from back then who, really ran the show, and the offense went through those guys, even if they had good run games. I think the way these teams are built is instructive. Especially, I'm talking about the Eagles last year or the Seahawks this year. You can win the Super Bowl without having the best quarterback in the league. You just have to have a really good roster. And I think there's something about this. Like you mentioned, the Rams had the fumbled special teams play, but they had tons of. They're always bad in special teams. You know who the worst special teams are statistically the last 5-6 years? It's the ones coached by LaFleur and Shanahan and McVay. They don't want to play special teams. Well, when you look at a team like Seattle, and Pete Carroll had this when he was good, they've got when you have a defensive type of a team, sometimes it just shows in your toughness, and you're good on special teams, and there's a mentality of guys wanting to play special teams. If you go back, I mean, Earl Thomas and those guys were playing special teams, and special teams is not the biggest part of the game until you have evenly matched opponents, and then you have a big advantage in that area, and then you win the game. And that's what I see with this team like Seattle, the way that it's built. I think the GM did a great job. And I think, the Eagles have had a good GM in Howie Roseman too, and they put together rosters that are strong all the way through. Some of these teams have had the great quarterbacks, and they never do that. That's how Rodgers is much better than Sam Darnold or some of these other guys, but he's on these teams where at the end of the game, he's on the sideline while the other team's scoring, or there's a big special teams onside kick.
Mhm.
There's something about the DNA of your team that comes from the build of the team and the coach of the team that makes you complete. And I feel like McDonald and Seattle have that.
Do
And
you
it's a huge advantage, especially when you get to play a team like that.
do you think because I'm just gonna challenge a little bit of what you said there because
Yeah.
those coaches you listed, I think McVay, LaFleur, and
Kyle.
and Shanahan. Do you think that they like? I don't believe that they are like, oh, who cares? We don't care that much about special teams. Like, it's not a priority for us because I think every coach has an awareness that every part of your game has to be as good as it can be. And I get that
Yeah.
maybe like there's a different mentality of a defensive coach versus an offensive coach, but I would venture to say that they know how important that is, but for whatever reason, maybe it is personnel, maybe it is, GM, like whatever
I don't think so.
reason, like those aren't playing at as sharp as someone else.
I say no, you can't fake it. So these, if you look at the 49ers, great job by Kyle Shanahan for 10 years. They're always in it. His quarterbacks always overperform. But what's he known for? The early down run game. So what's their Achilles heel? The drop back pass game. They're just not as good at it. They don't practice it. It's not part of their DNA. Everything's set up to win with 21 personnel, and they're better than anyone in the league at it.
Mm-hmm.
So what does McVay want to do, right? He's got another gear because he's got Stafford, and he's done a great job. He's probably had 2 or 3 different types of offenses there. But on defense, they have on special teams, when they kick off, they have the highest touchback rate in the league by like 20%. Why? He doesn't want to have it be part of the game. He doesn't want returns and all this stuff. He'd rather just not have it. And so it doesn't mean he doesn't know it's important. It's just he doesn't go out there saying it's not important, but we know his team is a reflection of what he really thinks is important and what he wants to do. And I think Sean McVay's done a great job with the defense. I think he's gotten involved in the defense.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's challenged himself that way. I think he's a great head coach. But if they had league average special teams, and remember, they had top 10 special teams before he got there in his first 2 years when he had the coordinator who was held over, Bones, he's in Dallas. He held over from Fossil. He held over from Jeff Fisher, who was all about special teams.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Jeff Fisher had the blind spots of, he wasn't the offensive coach that McVay was. So his teams were always sort of reflected him, right? They were competitive, but they were missing something on offense. I think the Rams are missing that on special teams. I think the 49ers were great on special teams this year, but haven't been. And Green Bay going all the way back through their whole run with Rodgers and even into Favre has lost more games than anyone on special teams. And I think that is a DNA of the team that starts with who you're going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it really starts with the personnel, and you have to make a place for those 4 or 5 guys that are your core members. Obviously, being with Coach Johnson and Joe Avezzano. Joe was one of the great special teams coaches in the history of this game. And then you talked about having starters. We had Daryl Johnson on. We laughed about him covering kicks and punts and practicing every day and getting through all that and then going and playing 45 plays. That's a commitment that you have to make to be consistent and be good with it. And, I think back the number of whether Darren Sproles or we had Kelvin Martin in Dallas that were big-time returners, and not only do they score points, they do a great job creating field position for you, and it changes the game.
Yeah. So talking about segueing out of the Super Bowl talk, but talking about the quarterbacks in the Super Bowl and those 2 guys. And I think something I saw, I felt like Drake Maye, I felt for him because I felt he's a young quarterback, and it felt like, okay, I hope he has a chance to get back here. it didn't, obviously he wasn't playing his best. There was a clear difference to me in terms of, and you don't, even if you're not going to classify Sam Darnold as a great quarterback, like there was a confidence, there was a leadership, there was a level of experience, and I think belief in the ability and his ability and the command that he had of the team that was just different. And sometimes that's just how many years you've been in the league and the experience you've had in big games, and maybe it is the adversity you've gone through to kind of persevere and get through that. And I really liked his comments after the game. He talked about his parents and the people in his life that really believed in him throughout, that allowed him to have that belief in himself, and that, this is, or him getting to that place was definitely a result in just like sort of an unwillingness to like give up, and to just sort of this steadfast belief in doing it.
I think Drake Maye seems to have all that, the right stuff. I think you can't fool the locker room, whether you're a coach or a quarterback. And we saw, Seattle over the years, even when Russell Wilson was really good, there was kind of this offense-defense divide thing. And some of those guys on defense were kind of poking holes in Russ and saying things after games, and there was a real divide there. And I think Sam Darnold has come in and really endeared himself to those guys, where there's a point during the season when Darnold had a big 4-interception game or something, and people were all over him. And that middle linebacker for them got up in the press conference and, dropped an F-bomb and said, he's our guy. I thought, it was really real to do that. So he must be a good preparer. He must be humble. He must be ready to go. There's a belief in who he is.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like Drake Maye seems to check those boxes too. He's just earlier in his career, and he hasn't had the ups and downs, and he didn't have the best team. I mean, they probably shouldn't have been in the Super Bowl in a normal year. So I think he'll be fine. But the idea that he's going to get back a bunch of times may not happen at all. Just it's hard, and there's other teams that are good, have better quarterbacks, maybe, or whatever.
Yeah.
What Drake Maye did for the entire season was really incredible. You're a guy coming off a 4-13 season a year ago, and people talk about, they change coordinators, whatever. You put in a new offense. That's challenging, and I think it's doable. Obviously, he showed it was, but then they got on a run, and they had the right plan for Maye. They had the right plan for their offense. They had a great plan defensively. They're a defensive dominant team, and they had a great schedule. So you can't. You can't really poke holes in what he did. And then they ran up against a really, really good football team that was kind of destined.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's amazing to me what Seattle's done, because Pete Carroll had such a great run there, but his defense kept getting worse every year. In the last few years, it was bottom 5, and to have a new guy come in and put him in the top 10 in his first year, and then have them be, a really, really great defense, I think, this season that quickly really got me thinking, because you're always taking a chance when you move on to somebody who's a real tenured head coach and has a lot of accomplishments. But sometimes if you get the right guy, it's like the change can be really good. So that really stood out to me in making that change and getting this good. And by the way, Mike McDonald's the first defensive play calling head coach, the primary caller to win a Super Bowl. Belichick was very involved, but he always had Romeo. In the ones they won, Romeo Cornell called in 3 of them, and Matt Patricia and Flores called in the other ones. That's kind of this McDonald guy is pretty squared away, in my opinion, to get that defense going like that quickly and be the caller in the game.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's nice to see the play caller call it. I think Belichick may have made
he made a couple
of those calls. He may have made them on the day before the game too, say, "Hey, here's what I want in these situations." But
I asked Ernie Adams about it. I talked to Ernie. He's a great historian, and he, he said everything went through Bill. Obviously, I mean, Bill's the boss. But as far as calling play to play, those guys were really calling.
No question.
But there's been a lot of great defensive coaches over the years, a lot. Chuck Noll had, I think, George Perlis for two of them, and who was the first two famous defensive coordinator? Bud Carson. Bud Carson.
Bud Carson, yeah.
Yeah, guys like that. And there's been a lot of really good defensive callers underneath some of those defensive coaches. So for him to put his blueprint on something so quickly and to make it be the top defense in the league that quickly, and you can change some of the players, but that's remarkable to me.
Yeah.
No, it's impressive what they've done.
And I think like we've talked about this a number of times on our show is just it is about the right guy. It's not oh, let's try to find the flashiest coach. Let's try to hire the most, seasoned or the whatever, like the most acclaimed, the most winning. Like I think it's each situation has like the right fit. And I sometimes wish that people wouldn't chase certain names and would actually just find the right fit.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's get into. We thought it would be fun to take a look back because the last time you were here, it was very early in the season, and things were different in terms of just how people were playing and where we thought teams were going. And we talked a lot about the tier system, so we thought it would be fun to throw up that tier graphic of. I guess, yeah, here's the cheat sheet, the explanation of sort of how you and this group of how many professionals?
50 coaches and executives that I pull every year between the draft and the start of the season to put all of the veteran starting quarterbacks into these tiers, with tier 1 being the best and tier 5 not really being a starter. We put together the definitions on here, with the tier 1 guy really carries it every week and can handle those pure pass situations better than the others, meaning we got to pass. They know we're going to pass. Are you overwhelmed? Do you sink? Or is the defense afraid, like the Falcons were when they faced Tom Brady leading 28-3 because Dan Quinn might run out of coverages by the end of the game, right? That's kind of the difference. So you can read through all of those. Tier 3 is kind of solid, but not spectacular. I feel like if you're in the top in the top 2 tiers quarterback, you feel like you win a Super Bowl without having just the best roster ever around him.
Mm-hmm. And then we'll throw up the next graphic of this one, where this was going into the 2025 season, how we tiered the quarterbacks, and I thought it was kind of interesting that just to kind of look through it and see like how people's seasons went, and the thing that because as we know. There's so much talk in the off season of predictions and how is this going to go and how is that going to go and all the different shows and podcasts and draft prep. And I think the day after the Super Bowl, I saw an article that was like, what about the new draft picks? Blah, blah. And I was like, can we just have a week? Can we have a week before we move into draft coverage? But yeah, I mean, obviously like your tier 1 guys here, okay, Matthew Stafford was in there, so that's good. That was our MVP, right?
Yes.
And
what's interesting is that Darnold and Maye are right there in tier 3, like they were tied for 20th in Darnold's case, and Drake Maye 22, and I think they're both moving up. I think they, as a rookie, Maye would be tier 4. Just we don't have enough information, need to see him, and I think Sam had kind of fallen into tier 4 as somebody who, had struggled, and then I think he probably climbed into tier 3, which is a solid starter after the Minnesota run there. But people want to see it again always. Like people in the league are not like overly excitable, so I think that was a solid spot for him to be with an arrow up. But Darnold's got to definitely probably move up into that tier 2 probably, and look at the guys ahead of him are just kind of in the top of tier 3. It's all those highly paid tier 3 guys who aren't that good, and they'll be falling by the wayside.
Well, one of the things that happens is you get labeled. And if you have the start that Sam had between the Jets, going to Carolina, the things he struggled with, you look at your list, Trevor Lawrence has struggled. Nix wasn't a highly rated guy coming out. A lot of people didn't particularly like Drake Maye
Yeah.
as he came out, and you saw signs of it, but they still won 4 games in his first year. So some of the voting happens that way. Oh, that guy, I wouldn't. Did you see the game where we can hear those
Yeah.
conversations and those 4 guys? I mean, Nick's. He wasn't my favorite guy, but he's convinced me that he's really a capable player, and that he didn't get to play in the championship game. If he plays in the championship game, who knows what happens? Maybe it's Denver playing against
Yeah.
Seattle. So you can get pigeonholed in this thing, and then you have to do something to climb back out of it. And obviously, Nick's, May, and Sam, they all did something this year. They're going to be seen in a different light. And then there's the stubborn guys who will never change their vote, and they'll just say, "Well, he had a great defense, he had a great running game,
Yeah.
they had the easiest schedule in the league,
Right.
and the guy's going to be a bust." So those are the ones you just got to throw out.
I agree. And I've done this long enough now that if there's guys like that, I just don't call them back the next year. Sometimes it's just, these results, when you take the ballots, say as much about the person doing the tiering than they say about the quarterbacks.
Yeah.
And there's different perspectives from different guys. So like Darnold had a lot of people who liked him coming out of college. So those guys all feel vindicated, right? If you had a top 5 grade on him coming out, you're like, yeah, see.
He's the third pick. And well, the one thing, they showed clips, I saw a highlight reel of it. When they beat Penn State in the Rose Bowl, he threw for like 470 yards, and some of the balls he threw were just perfect. And, they won the game. I think it was in overtime, but he had one of the great games you could have. So if you liked him going into the Rose Bowl game and you had the third pick like the Jets, you felt like, hey, we're getting a quarterback who's going to really make a difference and make this thing different. And then, unfortunately, when you're that high pick, you go to a team that's not real good.
And we've seen that New York market chew up coaches, chew up players. I mean, it's really tough. I mean, we didn't hear from Adam Gase I saw he's back. We didn't hear from him for 4 or 5 years. I mean, Daniel Jones, these guys have gone there and it just, the roof caves in and it's just not, you don't get a chance. And obviously, I mean, Scott lived that this year there too. It's just like, it's a great place. Like my dad used to say about when you joke about, a city, and like you say, it's a great place to be from, meaning you're not there anymore. You wouldn't always catch up on what he was saying, but
Right.
Hey, New Jersey, New York, that's a great place to be from for Sam Darnold, for Daniel Jones, these guys. I think of like a Ben McAdoo, who's on that New England staff now, like these guys go there, Adam Gase, like they got the job for a reason. They weren't complete idiots.
Yeah.
But by the time they're done with they're labeled as a complete idiot, and they're not.
Yeah.
So I actually, it's interesting. I almost like give Eli Manning some credit for having a good career there, because it's a hard place to go. So I think Darnold's in a way better spot. Now he's in Seattle. I got to ask you this, because Clint Kubiak's leaving, and those pairings have a lot to do with sometimes these, Tua Tagovailoa goes to Miami, and that offense is real good for him with the skill they had and the way they had it going early on. So then he revives. So is Sam Darnold, does he have the talent that he's going to be fine no matter what in this system? Or is it real important that they get a certain guy for you, Coach?
I think they have a plan. The head coach obviously has a plan. He fired the offensive coordinator a year ago because it wasn't what he wanted. He wanted an offense that complemented the defense, that was ball control, that took some pressure off the quarterback, and let his defense dominate games. So he got the right guy, and that's a big challenge for him now. But the map is set. They know what they want, so they can now find that guy that's not Clint Kubiak, but who's got a similar mentality and understands this is the style of team we're going to have.
And
How many more
I
Kubiaks
think
are there? I was going to ask you, how many more Kubiaks are there? There's a few more, aren't there? Maybe they can get one of those.
I think also Sam Darnold has proven now. I mean, he's been on a few teams. He's adjusted to a few different systems. He had success in Minnesota. He now was able to go in, have success in Seattle. And we had his coach, his personal Jordan Palmer on last week, and now we've learned, or we know that like the consistency for him has been his training. Um, that's the consistent training and sort of coaching he's had, and that he has someone like Jordan Palmer that is so like breaking down his games each week, sort of additional quarterback coaching outside of, we know like that's sort of outsourced now, and in his case I think it's very much been outsourced to his quarterback training program with Jordan. So I feel like he's in a really great position to have that consistency. And for all
Oh,
the
yeah.
reasons like you said, I mean, their head coach is going to be like, this is exactly the gap that we need filled, and we need it filled in this specific way. And he's going to plug that person in that can do that.
I've always been impressed with Jordan Palmer. I'd love to know what you think about that coach, though, of, has that type of role evolved over the years? And was there a time in your career when you'd be like, oh, the last thing I want is this guy, listening to some former player who is going to, tell him this or that. We want to coach him how we want to coach him. Have you evolved on that? As somebody like I've known Jordan for years, I've been impressed by him, but how do you feel about that middle guy?
Well, I think the best guys know how to work with a player and don't cross over into the true football part of it. You have the football, you have the scheme, you have the staff, you have the things you're doing, and then you have the physical skills involved in playing quarterback. And the best guys I've been around, like Jordan, they do a great job of helping these guys get better physically, get the weight distribution, get the follow through, get the things done, speed up maybe the delivery a little bit, which is always a big part for me. And they don't tend to get into the X and O part. That's what you're looking for.
So yeah, could you, as I don't know what the rules are, but could the coordinator be talking directly or indirectly to a guy like Jordan, saying, hey, here's what we're doing, what we're doing, but here's my kind of, would there be any like that? Because there's rules where you can't work with a guy yourself directly all off season, but would that be kind of crossing a line to like give
Yeah, is
your
that allowed?
notes to Jordan or something?
I think it's done. I think people
Yeah.
talk. There's
Yeah.
communication through it all, and I don't think you're breaking a rule. I know this, that it makes no sense, but for years now, I'm talking about years, 20 years, we would start the off season, and the quarterbacks would come in. If the off-season program started April 15th, they'd come in the last week of March, and we called it quarterback school, and we would meet for 3 or 4 hours in the morning, go through tapes. We'd have everything set up, before they got there. Then in the afternoon, we'd go out for a couple hours, simple stuff, work on drops, work on, quick throws, work on different things that we're emphasizing, movement stuff, whatever that be. Then go back in and watch the tape of the workout. And it was great. It was great for the starter to get started again, to get going. But it was great for the young guys to learn the process. And you're not allowed to do that. You find a way to do it within that time period with the OTAs and all that. But to not be able to spend time with those guys from February to April, it just doesn't make sense. Particularly now, you're paying that group of that tier 1, tier 2. Some of those tier 3 guys, you're paying them $50 million a year. It's not asking too much for them to spend a little time, and it is a nice relaxed time to get them started. And we always felt you were getting them ready for when everyone else came in. They were a week ahead. And that's what you want, particularly a young quarterback. You want to be able to make the calls, understand where everyone lines up. We always told them, the quarterback is responsible. When I see a guy line up wrong, when I see a guy going in motion and doing the wrong thing, we always said, hey, that's your job to fix it. The guy's lined up wrong. It's your job to fix it before the ball's snapped. But if you don't know it, you can't fix it. So that's where that extra time comes in.
So I don't know if you guys saw this, but on the New Heights podcast, they had Cooper Kupp on there, and they were asking him about the game. And you know that touchdown pass to the young tight end? So Cooper said, and he's obviously a veteran who studies, and he's in there early, and he's been around. He said they got out there and realized that somehow the formation got flipped backwards accidentally. And so he said he realized right before the snap that if he runs his route, he's going to run right into the tight end. The tight end's a second-year guy, AJ Barner, good player, but he doesn't have the mental reps and the time.
Sure.
So at the last second, he changed his route. And so they had him on. Then they had Barner on. And it was so different because Barner said, Barner goes, all I heard is, yada, 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 why, whatever the Y was doing on the play, why, 2 words. You remember why, which is obviously the tight end and whatever he was supposed to do. Why scissors? The whole play call comes out with a little tag for every different person. The quarterback has to know it all. If you're the tight end, you maybe only need to know why scissors, but to really be at the next level and correct a play, you've got to know what the other guy can do. There's a famous story from the Super Bowl that John Taylor scored the big touchdown against Cincinnati, where in the backfield, Roger Craig and what's the blocking back? Tom Rathman were lined up in the wrong spots. They were flopped. And because they had done their homework and had been in the offense, they fixed it. And it was really critical to where their route distribution was. Because remember back then you'd have 2 backs in a pass route. And they fixed like one of the most iconic plays. So Cooper Kupp did that in that game. I had no idea watching the game. You wouldn't know. But those little details can win you a big game.
Well,
can you think
that
of other
route
ones like
they
that?
ran, that route they ran with the tight end inserting and running up inside, and Cooper ran the post, the scissors, how they orchestrated it. Sometimes you never know. Sometimes it's on Monday as a coach, you're saying, now what happened here? What were you guys doing? I'm not complaining. It was a touchdown, but just explain to me how this happened. But I promise you, every team in the league will be running that play next year. And it was because Cooper was able to figure it out and make sure the tight end did the right thing. And then he ran a route to get out of his way. It's a very well-designed play. And I'm glad to hear that it was a little bit off the cuff and guys were not sure. We had when I was in Dallas, our main 2 guys that we moved around were Jay Novacek and Daryl Johnson, because they knew the offense inside out. Michael Irvin knew the offense. He knew where to line up to go get the ball. And every once in a while he didn't. He lined up wrong because he wanted the ball and it went somewhere else.
Really? He would line up wrong to get the ball? He would line up wrong to get the ball?
He would make people switch spots with him. You know that famous story.
Yeah. And
tell it. This is too good, Coach. I got to hear this.
I think he told it. I think Michael told it in the Netflix thing.
No, there were certain plays. I don't like a lot of words. So there's certain plays that these guys, you say, okay, this play, Michael, Alvin, you guys switch. I'm not going to call swap.
Just do it.
Twins right motion. Yeah. You guys just know to switch. And we were successful in that because there were certain things Alvin did that we wanted him on the split inside, and we wanted Michael Z. Well, the famous play at the end of the game against the 49ers, Mike switched on his own, and he would have caught the ball that Alvin caught and went 70 yards with, and he was overrunning a curl route.
Because I think he was mad that he hadn't gotten the ball or something, and so he said, switch with me, Alvin. Yeah. And he made him switch with him, and then Alvin ends up scoring the touchdown, and
Alvin
afterward, And afterward, Michael is like, that was my ball. That was my touchdown. He's like, well, it could.
He said as he was running down the field, he sees Alvin about 20 yards in front of him running trying to get in the end zone. And he said, I just yelled to myself, that's my ball, Alvin. That's
It's
my
so
ball.
great. So that's what you get for trying to do that. If you just let it happen, it would have happened. Steph, if your dad's ever having a bad day, just send him a clip of that play, because that play, Coach, that's in your top 5 plays of your career, isn't it?
Oh, no question. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
awesome.
It's unbelievable because of the impact, obviously, it had on the game and my history with the 49ers. I'd stood on the other side when I was with the Rams and watch the 49ers take the ball in the last drive and go beat you, and it was like they knew. We all saw them with Montana, with Young. Yeah. That's what they were going to do. And we were intent on making sure if they got the ball back, we would have a 11-point lead. I think we had a 10-point lead because we missed the extra point. But there's other plays that are as dynamic, as sensational, but they happen in different time frames, between Phillip and Gates and Vincent Jackson and some of the things those guys did to keep us in a game, to give us a chance to win the game. I talked about that, the game in Tennessee, we're down 17-0. Phillip made a throw to Chris Chambers on 4th and 15, unbelievable. Went down and got it, and if they had a good replay, we might not have got it. It might have hit the ground, but we got the catch on that one. Sometimes that happens, but for a play to happen in that situation, there's not a bigger play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sometimes those are the things you remember. That cup play was a good one for them too. So it's fun. Let's make football fun.
I think we'll wrap up in a few minutes, but one quarterback that I saw in the tier 3 that I'm curious if you guys think he'll move is Caleb Williams.
Oh, he's got to go up. How high? I mean, are you putting him low twos now? Or are you? It's interesting. He made some strides within the structure of the offense, but I think still his improvisational ability carried him. I kind of liked what I saw. I kind of like where it's going. Don't you think he's probably a 2? They won him the game at the end of the game a lot.
Yeah, I don't want to declare my vote too soon because I don't want to be eliminated from the process. I enjoy ranking him, but he goes right into the second tier. I mean, he's that's a couple of those throws he made during the season, during the playoffs. I mean, I don't know that he could. Other guys can make the throws he made. The one he running backwards and throwing it into the end zone, and what they're doing, and they just do a great job coaching the quarterback. It's pretty impressive, and they're giving him structure where he hasn't had structure, and with a guy like him, like these guys that can improvise, like Rodgers, you want to give them structure, but you don't want to take away the ability
what makes them unique
to use their natural ability, and that's a fine line because you can't be on the sideline yelling when a guy's scrambling and going to throw it, yelling no, and it's a touchdown. Say great play, you turn it right around. You can't coach them that way, but you have to have structure, and then they have to have the freedom to know that when things break down, they've got natural abilities. And my big deal that when I know in different situations, where it would be with Phillip, when I was in Washington, Gus Frock got to where he was playing pretty good. With Troy after the first year or something, they said, well, how does he get to the next level? And the way these quarterbacks, Sam Darnold, the way they get to the next level is by doing the same things over and over and over again, and everybody who's involved getting better at their job and what they're doing. And then along the way, you add guys who are playmakers who can help the
can
quarterback.
complement all that,
So
yeah.
that's you gotta the quarterback's gotta be driven to improve, but everyone around him has to get better, and you have to keep adding players. And my big pet peeve, and I've said it 20 times on this, you have to evaluate your own players. You have to do a great job evaluating your own players so you keep the right guys and then mix in the new guys with them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Next year they're going to fall off some. They won all these close games, so it's not like they just add 3 wins to this year, But I'm very interested to see how he. Like, I love Ben Johnson's handling, just the whole thing. Like when he first got in there, he's very much about public accountability for the whole team and talking about guys' body language and stuff. And sometimes you go, geez, if that's going to not go over so well if you lose but I think when your coach demonstrates to the team that he really knows what he's doing and he can help everybody play better, you have a lot of authority then to hold guys accountable, don't you, Coach?
No question. And those are things that I think it's different than it was, I think, 10 years ago or whatever, because the things that you coach, and body language has always been a big thing to me. Preparation, all the things involved.